This is CBC Here and Now.
It definitely took both of my parents away from me and left me with nothing.
Years later, the daughter of Jennifer Hillier-Penny is still waiting for answers about her mother's disappearance while police continue their investigation.
Keeping us in the greens. An indoor farmer says this facility could mean the crops don't have to stop when the temperatures drop.
All that can be so easily converted over into food production, and at that volume we could produce huge, staggering amounts of food.
Coming up on Here and Now.
The wind, although it blows over our land, is still our resource.
Premier Andrew Furey sits down for a one-on-one interview to look at the year ahead and how he plans to make sure hydrogen projects don't turn into another green giveaway. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Our top story tonight, more than 100 ambulance workers in rural Newfoundland began strike action today with a Work to Rule campaign. The union representing paramedics, emergency medical responders and dispatchers employed by private ambulance service says the workers have been in a strike position since November. At 7 o'clock this morning, they ramped up the first step in their strike plan. Here and Now's Jeremy Eaton has been following this story and joins us now live. So Jeremy, what's the latest?
Carolyn, all of these workers working for 7 different companies, all owned by one person, took a huge step today towards walking off the job. It's called Work to Rule. That's when they perform only their core functions while at work. A move the staff and union took after contract talks broke off with owner Bob Furey. The general public won't notice much of a change today. Calls to 911 will still go through dispatch and ambulances will still be deployed, but they won't look like you'd expect.
The general public shouldn't really notice any change, clear of that the paramedics that are coming to pick you up won't be wearing the familiar uniform that they would normally wear on a daily basis.
The move comes after contract talks stalled last month. CBC News has requested an interview with Furey about this. Furey's Ambulance Service Limited owns 7 companies, which employs 120 staff and has 35 ambulances. The sticking points for the staff and the union is a pension plan and pay.
Our members work 24-hour days and then multiple 24-hour days. As per the terms of the current agreement that the employer has with the provincial government, he only receives payment for 11.43 of those hours. So our employees are basically working half a day for free.
Which, according to DAW, is less than minimum wage.
They have come forward with one offer for one of the companies, and that was rejected by the group. And, they were very frustrated when we learned yesterday morning that despite being promised now for well over a month that we were going to receive an offer, the employer reached out for a copy of our proposal so he could make up an offer for us. That was just a clear indication that the employer has no respect for the paramedics, EMRs, and dispatchers that are working for him.
If the workers go on strike, it's a massive gap for healthcare in rural Newfoundland. A statement from the Department of Health says should a strike happen, people will still have ambulance services, with regional health authorities and other private companies stepping in and adding additional staff.
And the fatigue issues that we're facing and the staffing issues that we're facing in the Teamsters represented companies are not unique to us. So I'm not sure if the government has really thought this through as to where the individual is going to come from to fill this extra demand that's being placed on these other services.
I got a joint statement from the Department of Health and the Minister of Labour saying that this is a matter between a private sector employer and its employees, and that it's providing conciliation services. The province also says that Furey's Ambulance Service Limited does receive $7.7 million per year in block funding, and that does not include other revenue involved with ambulance operations like mileage and patient fees. Carolyn?
Thanks so much, Jeremy. Well, staying with health, the number of people without a family doctor has risen, according to the province's medical association. New numbers paint a worsening picture and suggest that 26% of residents are without a family doctor. That's more than 136,000 people, which is about 10,000 more than previously reported last spring. The head of the NLMA says the province is facing a staffing crisis, but that the association's relationship with the Department of Health has significantly improved since Tom Osborne was appointed health minister last year. Well, there's another potential strike action looming in this province at Memorial University. MUN professors and librarians have now set a date for their strike vote. The union says it will be held online next Wednesday. In a message to members, MUN's Faculty Association encourages members to vote for a strike. It says a strong strike mandate would give it a good position to negotiate a new contract with the university. Now, this doesn't mean a strike would necessarily happen. The group says if a strike is called, it's unlikely it would start before January 23rd.
Oh, it was a lovely day to enjoy the snow that fell yesterday. Just taking a live look outside right now. We've got some wet pavement, but lots of snow still there to enjoy. We're currently sitting at -6. Temperatures have been fairly chilly for a good chunk of the day today, with the wind chill feeling more like -12. We do have a lot less wind at the moment. Those west-northwesterly winds around 17 kilometers per hour. Where we do have some wind is up across northern portions of Labrador. Blowing snow advisory still in place for Nain to Hopedale, expecting a couple more centimeters to fall. However, the winds will ease as we head through the evening hours tonight, so this blowing snow advisory should end. And then we turn our attention to the weekend. We have a big weather system moving in that is already prompting some special weather statements. We've got rain, freezing rain, and snow all on the way. I'll break that down for you coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, 6 years have passed since Jennifer Hillier-Penny was last seen. But the Mounties say evidence they collected back then still has value now, and they've gone to court to hang on to it a little longer. Police suspect Hillier-Penny was murdered. That's old news to her eldest daughter, who says the only update she wants to hear is when someone is arrested. Here now's Ariana Kellant has the details.
Marina Goodyear is another year older, but Jennifer Hillier-Penny remains the same. Her image frozen in time on billboards and posters, in photos at Marina's home.
I'm not moving forward. I'm living day to day. You get up and you do it like everybody else, but I'm not moving forward. I'm stuck in the same mental turmoil that I've been in since 2016.
The mother of two was last seen here on Husky Drive in St. Anthony. She was looking after her youngest daughter while her estranged husband, Dean, was hunting. Police believe she was murdered, but it's been 6 years and no one has been charged. Jennifer Hillier-Penny has never been found.
I think the biggest mistakes were already made in the beginning that we're never going to recover from. And I truly believe they're just waiting for somebody to crack and not be able to hold the secret anymore, and playing the waiting game for that, you know.
Goodyear says the RCMP waited too long to take her mother's case seriously. Last month, the Mounties went to court to hold on to what they did gather in the weeks after Hillier-Penny's disappearance. These items were taken from Dean Penny's home: swabs, pillow casings, and bed sheets. From a cabin, one unknown item. And from a vehicle, 131 swabs, 2 strands of hair, chest waders, knitted mitts, and 3 gloves. Through his lawyer, Dean Penny declined to comment.
If they had anything that could end this, it would be already done by now.
Certainly the weight or the importance that it has or the value it has today can be very much different than what it may hold tomorrow, depending on the possibility of where the investigation heads to, any new developments in the case.
One of my favorites, because
Goodyear says she can't go a day without telling a story about her mom. She's never forgotten. The RCMP says it hasn't forgotten either.
This is not forgotten about in our eyes. We understand for sure that 6 years is a long time, and nobody will ever understand, what family and friends are dealing with in trying to process, the loss of somebody where they have all these unanswered questions. The RCMP would love nothing more than to be able to answer these questions for the family and put their minds at ease and help them to move on.
Goodyear fears it's all too late.
The only call that I really want to entertain right now is meet us at such and such a courtroom on this day because we've arrested your mother's killer.
The RCMP has never publicly named a suspect. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
A high school teacher in St. John's has chosen to forego a jury trial 3.5 years after her arrest on charges of sexual exploitation. Krista Grimes is accused of having sexual contact with a student. This morning, she decided to be tried by a judge alone. The court was told the police investigation began after an anonymous email to the school board about rumors that Grimes had been sleeping with students. Grimes' lawyer raised concerns about that investigation and suggested the substitute teacher was the victim of long-standing widespread rumors. The trial resumes tomorrow. Still with the courts, an RNC officer on the West Coast has been found guilty of 2 counts of assault. Constable Noelle Late was accused of choking and beating her domestic partner over a 2-year period and faced 4 charges. Today, she was found guilty of assault and assault causing bodily harm. The judge told the court some of Late's explanation of her partner's injuries was disingenuous, nonsensical, and not honest. She testified the injuries were the result of falls, but the judge said the extent of the woman's injuries was not consistent with that. Late has remained an employee of the RNC since being charged earlier this year. There's no word on the status of her job. Police in Happy Valley Goose Bay are asking for help identifying a pair who's responsible for vandalizing a commercial property on Christmas Eve. According to the RCMP, it happened during the early morning hours on Hamilton River Road. 2 suspects, who appear to be male, are seen smashing out a number of windows on the property before fleeing the area on foot. One suspect was wearing a dark winter coat, gray gym pants, and yellow striped work gloves. The other had a 2-toned green coat with burgundy hoodie, jeans, and black boots. Both suspects wore baseball caps. Anyone with information is asked to contact police or Crime Stoppers. Well, a hydroponic farmer in Mount Pearl says it's tragic that a huge cannabis production facility has been sitting empty in the east end of St. John's for 2 years. The 230,000 square foot facility was built for canopy growth. But Scott Neary of Green Farm NL says it could be used to feed a lot of people. Here now's Mark Quinn reports.
Indoor farmers like Scott Neary are hungry for news about what will happen to this huge facility. They say all this shiny new gear has great potential.
It's state of the art. It's actually, even as far as cannabis production facilities go, it was actually state of the art and still is. And all that can be so easily converted over into food production. And at that volume, we could produce huge, staggering amounts of food.
This production facility in the White Hills area was built for canopy growth. But in 2020, the company announced its plans had changed. But while this has remained closed, Green Farm NL has been busy growing greens like lettuce, kale, and arugula. They deliver it to local restaurants and subscribers.
So in about 2,000 square feet, we're feeding about 250 to 300 families a week, roughly.
He believes the canopy growth facility could feed more than 10 times that, up to 40,000 families per week.
That's huge. That's a massive chunk of our population that would more than double our current fresh food production here. So that's what's possible.
And for him, it's more than a pipe dream. Green Farm NL has been growing steadily for 3 years, and Neary says it's getting ready to expand.
We're constantly doubling and doubling in the space that we're in and growing, but we're definitely outgrowing our prototype facility here, and it's not built for farming. It was a building that we adapted to farm on a budget. So now it's our goal to scale this up to the next stage so we can continue to really be this example of what's possible in Newfoundland.
Neary says his company is looking at building a bigger facility of its own, but he believes using some of the cannabis facility with 81,000 square feet of growing space would be a better option.
It is a little too big for any one food producer right now to do. I think it's a really strong case for a public-private partnership, for the government to partner with private industry to create solutions here in a fast, effective way.
In an emailed statement to CBC, the Agriculture Department says it's willing to listen to any and all proposals from farmers who want to help make this province food self-sufficient. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, in hockey news, it was a big night for Dawson Mercer of Bay Roberts. He had his best game to date with the NHL's New Jersey Devils.
Mercer to the forehand! Score! Dawson Mercer second!
Yes, Mercer scored 2 goals to help the Devils overtake Carolina 5-3, and commentators said he did it with, quote, Bobby Orr flair. He also had an assist during his 17 minutes on the ice. The Devils have now moved within 2 points of the first-place Hurricanes in the Metropolitan Division. Mercer himself has a total of 25 points. It's the 21-year-old's second season as an NHLer. He's played 123 games with the league and has racked up 67 points. The generosity of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians shone through this holiday season. The Feed NL campaign raised thousands for the Community Food Sharing Association and for families in need. We'll give you the grand total coming up.
Temperatures have been pretty chilly out there into the minus single digits, minus double digits up across Labrador, but a warm up is on the way.
Well, Ashley, it is definitely starting to feel more wintry on the Avalon, waking up to a bit of snow on the ground, some gentle flurries.
Yeah, it was really nice, and people are definitely making the most of it ahead of this weekend warm-up. And, you know, it doesn't take much snow to get the Winter Activity Center at Pibby Park in St. John's up and running.
Yeah, skiers and snowshoers were out on the trails today, some doggos too. Today was the center's official opening, and it looked like a good one.
Yeah, after seeing those shots of snowy Marble Mountain yesterday, this is definitely a beautiful sight.
Yeah, it's a wintry wonderland. Not going to last though, right?
No, it is not going to last. We have a couple more days of this nice weather, the cold weather, I should say, thanks to this area of high pressure and also all this cold air. It's going to stick around for a couple more days and then things will change. We've got lots of rain on the way. In fact, some of those special weather statements along the south coast in particular, 100 millimeters of rain is certainly possible with that, so definitely going to break down that forecast in a little while. But right now we're going to focus on what is just coming up. So taking a look at the temperatures, when we talk about cold air, it is very cold, minus 26 again, so not nearly as cold, not quite as cold, I should say, as yesterday at minus 33, but Lab City sat around minus 26 this morning. And then we've got those temperatures in the minus single digits for a good chunk of the island today. Minus 6 in St. John's, minus 17 in Deer Lake, and minus 13 this morning in Corner Brook. But when we take a look at the daytime highs today, they didn't really move all that much, minus single digits for the most part, and then minus double digits for Happy Valley Goose Bay at minus 15 and minus 13 for Cartwright. Now, it has been a windy day out there, especially up across northern portions of Labrador. Nain reporting snow and blowing snow for a good chunk of the afternoon, topped out at about 65 kilometers per hour. Winds across the island out of the west in that onshore flow, seeing lots of onshore activity as far as flurries are concerned on the west coast today as well. 39 kilometers per hour rather in Stephenville this afternoon. And then you look at those winds now, there's really not a whole lot to talk about. In fact, the winds across Labrador are also easing and will continue to do so. That blowing snow advisory should end as we head into the evening hours. So when we take a look at the future tracker, because of that ridge of high pressure, there really isn't a whole lot to talk about as far as the weather is concerned either. Maybe we will see rather some flurries along coastal areas of Labrador continue. Same thing for the west coast in that onshore flurry. I'm sure there has been lots of snow in some of the higher elevations today, and even some snow-covered roads as well. And then as far as the south coast is concerned, you'll probably see a few flurries tonight. Otherwise, not a whole lot to talk about. Temperatures are going to be dropping into the minus double digits, minus 13 tonight in Gander, minus 8 in St. John's, and then temperatures for the northern peninsula in those minus teens, and then Labrador as well, pretty chilly. Another minus 33 overnight low expected for Lab City, and minus 15 for Happy Valley Goose Bay. Now, when we take a look at the future tracker as we head through the day tomorrow, those onshore flurries will likely continue for those of you across the west coast. Otherwise, some sunshine in the forecast, which will be nice. Temperatures will stay fairly chilly as well. Up across Labrador, you're looking at just some cloudy periods through the day, and then some flurries moving right back in for Lab West as we head into the evening and overnight hours. And then temperatures tomorrow, you're looking at minus single digits, northwesterly winds 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Bonavista minus 9. And then as we head towards central Newfoundland, you're looking at your temperatures in the minus single digits as well. West coast, winds out of the northwest around 20 kilometers per hour. And then for the northern peninsula, minus 7 to minus 9. And then for southeastern Labrador, your temperatures will be sitting in the minus single digits. So much warmer than it has been. A bit of a warm up, but the temperatures are going to drop. Minus 24 will be the story for Lab City. Now, like I said, lots of warm air in the forecast. We could be seeing those temperatures 9, 10, 11 degrees. Some models pointing at, which means rain. There are also some areas that will see some significant freezing rain in the mix as well. And we'll break that full forecast down coming up.
Last month, CBC-NL teamed up with the Community Food Sharing Association for the annual Feed NL campaign to raise money for food banks right across the province. And joining me now is the manager of the Community Food Sharing Association, Tina Bishop. So Tina, what ended up being the grand total of the fundraiser?
The grand total for the fundraiser this year was $177,040.38.
That seems pretty good.
Absolutely amazing.
So tell us how that money will be used.
That money will be used to help us purchase food for distribution to the food banks across the province.
So this is right across the province?
This is right across the province. So right now we have 56 food banks in our network, and all of the food banks will benefit from this campaign.
Can you talk about the need right now? What sorts of things are you seeing in terms of families in need of food?
Well, what we're seeing, and right across the province, we're hearing from all the food banks, it's the same thing, that the demand is certainly increased. It's actually a pretty scary time for food banks in the province because the demand is so high. Donations are lower. And so it is a very scary time, and you know, with everybody's support, we're able to make this happen, and we'll get the food out to the food banks that need it, so it gets directly to the clients that need it.
Yeah, and I guess it's something for people to keep in mind that there's this big push before the holiday season to try to raise money for people in need. But when the holidays are over and everything settles back down, the need is still there.
The need is definitely still there. So right now, we're in a good position right now to get us through some of the winter months. And then, you can see right now our warehouse is pretty full. In a month, you'll see a big difference in this. We're going to be in need of food again. So we just ask you continue your support, and we appreciate all the help we can get.
And when you get to that point when the supply starts to dwindle a little bit, what can people do to help? Is it better for people to donate cash? Are there certain food supplies that you need?
Well, we actually need a bit of both. The food helps us. The cash donations help us be able to distribute that food and purchase where we see shortages. So we really need a good supply of both.
Well, Tina Bishop, I'm glad the fundraiser went so well for you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. We certainly look forward to it every year, and it is our major fundraiser for the year. So, we want to thank you guys. You've been absolutely fabulous.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yes, and we look forward to it as well. And as Tina Bishop mentioned there, the final Feed NL Day tally is a total of over $177,000. CBC did hold events across the province last month as part of the fundraising campaign. Our CBC team was on hand at the Avalon Mall in St. John's on December 16th. Then in Labrador, $5,400 and 75 turkeys were collected for the Happy Valley Goose Bay Ministerial Association. The Newfoundland Morning Radio Crew held live events in Gander, raising $5,200, and in Corner Brook, a total of almost $3,400. So thanks to everyone who donated to help food banks across Newfoundland and Labrador.
It's easy to revisit history now sitting here, but many of these projects were doomed.
Well, they're making record profits, but this year oil companies will get more than $180 million from taxpayers. Stay with us. Peter Cowan asks the Premier about the future of oil, healthcare, and the cost of living in a feature one-on-one interview. Well, 2023 is sure to bring a lot of challenges for political leaders. Inflation is high, healthcare is strained, and the issue of climate change is front and center. So how will the Premier of this province tackle these challenges? Here now's Peter Cowan sat down with Premier Andrew Furey to chart the path forward in the year ahead.
Well, Premier, thanks so much for joining us and sitting down.
Happy to be here. Did you have a good Christmas?
I did. How was yours?
It was fantastic. It was great.
I want to talk about healthcare because that's on a lot of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians' minds right now. You're a doctor. Your assessment of the situation right now, how is the healthcare system doing?
Well, the healthcare system was broken before the pandemic, but the pandemic itself accelerated the degree of trouble that the healthcare system is in, and I think we all recognize that. The system needs revision, it needs modernization, it needs creativity, and it needs reinvention. The system was designed for the 1960s. It really hasn't been modernized to any significant substantive degree, and we wanted to do that, so we're out in front by appointing the Health Accord to identify the priorities moving forward to modernize and reimagine a modern healthcare system for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
But a lot of that stuff is more long-term. That's going to be fixing it rather than the short-term.
We recognize the short-term challenges and thought outside the box, whether that's in terms of changing the Medical Act to allow for more efficient licensing of doctors across the country and perhaps into other countries to eliminate that barrier, that red tape to the practice of medicine here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We've established an India desk to look at recruiting nurses with similar credentials in consultation with stakeholders like the College of Nurses to ensure that we're still maintaining the quality of care but recruiting there. We've increased our local capacity almost to the maximum. We've increased the capacity in the medical school for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. We've increased the nursing schools by 25 to 35% between the LPNs and RNs, and we've increased the paramedics. So we're looking at short term in terms of recruiting and retaining. We've appointed a new assistant deputy minister solely responsible for recruitment, retention, and of course I've taken this on very personally. The whole government is seized by this, but this is something that occupies a large portion of my day. We went and met with medical students. We went and met with all the nursing graduates, put contracts or letters of intent of contract in front of all of them to ensure that they know that we want them. They're here training, we want them. The patients want them, we want them, and we want them to buy into the new vision, whether that's through enhanced virtual care or increasing the number of collaborative team clinics throughout the province. But we know that this is a disruptive time. We know that this is a stressful time for provider and patient alike, and we want to be there for them in the short, medium, and long term.
That was a pretty long list of things there, but
that's not all of them. I know you're anxious for another question, Peter. That's why I want to give you the opportunity.
But if you look over the holidays at the number of shutdowns, you had some sort of service disruptions: St. Lawrence, the Waterford, Whitburn, Bonavista, Buckens, Bayvert, Springdale, Harbour Breton, Lewisport, Fogo.
Yep.
That doesn't seem to be stopping the bleeding in terms of the short-term concerns that people have, that they want to know that there's going to be a doctor when they need health care in their community.
Yeah, and some of the incentive has already started to work. As you've already heard Minister Osborne in the new year saying the come home year incentive, for example, for doctors and nurses has recruited 16 professionals just in the fall of this past year. That's not in total. So some of these things will take some time, and I can understand the stress and strain that people in those communities that you list are experiencing.
Is that list that I just listed out of places that had to, curtail services, is that a sign that our footprint is just kind of unsustainable, that we have too many clinics in too many places?
No, I don't think so. Not at all. No, I mean, some of those places that you just suggested have a significant population, and they deserve a service. This has never been about closing infrastructure. In fact, we need to look at creative ways to better employ the existing infrastructure. And some of the things that we've done is looked at hospitals that have capacity, OR capacity, for example, people talking about surgical wait lists. There is additional capacity that can be exercised, for example, in St. Anthony, Carbonear, with respect to exercising some surgical wait times, for example. So these people deserve care. Obviously, the delivery mechanism of care needs to be modernized. That means utilizing fully virtual care. It means utilizing fully team care, so that it's just not one GP showing up in a community of 5,000 who has to treat everything. They're supported by a collaborative team, a group of GPs, a group of primary care physicians, supported by nurse practitioners, nurses, allied health professionals, all caring for the patient, so that you as a patient will know that when I show up, there will be someone there to look after me. Me as a provider, I'll know that, hey, I can have a week's vacation and there will be someone there to look after the patient. It won't be the same relationship that is traditional, in that you will always see Dr. Smith, and Dr. Smith will take care of you from cradle to grave. The team will take care of you.
As we start this year, inflation is still a big issue on a lot of people's minds. The latest numbers in this province, 6.7%. Before Christmas, a lot of people in this province got $500 checks. But with inflation showing no signs of really taking a big dip anytime soon, what sort of options are you looking at this year in terms of easing that burden on Newfoundlanders and Labrador?
We are entertaining, and always will be entertaining, in a responsive and responsible fashion, one that is prudent and reflective of the budget capacity that we have, to help people moving forward. So to say, I don't have one particular instrument that we will use right now. We are monitoring the situation, obviously, and we'll be responsive to people's needs.
Going forward, though, is it going to be a program response where there's a targeted benefit, or are you looking at more that general response?
No, we're still evaluating all of that and still looking at all that, frankly, Peter. And so, as you know, the cutting the motor vehicle registration in half was a temporary tax relief. Cutting the tax relief on home insurance was a temporary tax relief. That's a program, but we could look at, of course, extending that. The gas tax, another one. So we're still evaluating the program instruments that we've already used, whether that's the seniors supplement or others that I just suggested, and looking at what's the best given the fiscal restraint and the fiscal envelope of the province and our capacity moving forward. There is no one who would like to do more than me, but there are significant fiscal restraints as well, and we need to be prudent, looking not just 2 to 3 months, but 20, 30 years down the road.
If we have limited resources, as you said, as a province, doesn't it make sense to target it to, people who are more vulnerable? When you look at, for example, like back pay MHAs were getting the same $500 that a single family, who may be struggling was getting.
Yeah, so we wanted to this was a quick way to make sure that people got money, and we wanted to make sure that the middle class got money. And oftentimes, in some of the programs and measures that we introduced, there was the single teacher, for example, who was living alone with 2 kids. Oftentimes they were caught and didn't get captured in the programs that we were trying to use to help those people. So we wanted to make sure that it was broad. Whether we got the right cutoff or not in terms of the income level, I'd rather be sitting here being criticized for someone receiving a check who didn't need it. By the way, they're welcome to donate it if they didn't need it, than having this conversation about someone who really did need it, who didn't get it.
The province likes to talk about green energy, but why is it still subsidizing oil and gas? We'll talk about the future of energy in this province coming up. A lot of talk in the last year has been about hydrogen, but oil and gas is still the big energy source in this province. Andrew Furey, I want to ask you, this fiscal year, there's 180 million tax dollars in oil supports that are going to the oil and gas industry. You've said we're not going to stop the oil and gas industry here, but is it time to stop the subsidies to these companies, especially considering they're now bringing in record profits?
So those subsidies that you're talking about, those were specific from the pandemic. That money had to be used to subsidize the oil and gas industry, if you'll recall. Back in 2020 when that money, or 2020, late 2020, I think, when that money was introduced. So that's leftover money. That can't be used for anything else. It was very prescriptive from the federal government. It was $330 million, I think, at the time. And that had to be used to help support the women and men in the industry. So some of the money that's still going out the door is from that. We don't subsidize any further the oil and gas industry from the provincial coffers, but that was a one-time payment from the transfer, really, from the federal government to the provincial government to manage, to ensure that the industry could survive. And I think it was good use of money at the time. As you suggest, the oil companies are now making record profits, and we will share in those profits given the royalty streams. But at the time, it's easy to revisit history now sitting here, but many of these projects were doomed. Cenovus was pulling out, the Terra Nova was never going to restart, and some of that money allowed these projects. Hibernia stopped drilling. Some of this money, in fact, all of the money, helped smooth that rough time for the hardworking women and men in the industry to ensure that there was a sustainable industry beyond the pandemic.
When you look at green energy projects, hydrogen is so new. There isn't really a template we can pull out and say, like we could with oil and gas, and say, hey, here's someone who's done it successfully. So we're kind of writing this all as we go along.
The whole world is, by the way.
Absolutely. How do we make sure that the way this ends up is in the benefit of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, and we don't end up with something like another Churchill Falls where someone else gets to benefit from our resource?
So first of all, I think we take the lessons from Churchill Falls and ensure that we are using those lessons wisely in developing a paradigm that exists here for a hydrogen framework. And I think Minister Parsons has done a great job, a fiscal framework. I think we also use lessons, by the way, Peter, from the oil industry, where we recognize that royalties and royalty regimes are a great way to exercise value of our resources. We know that there's upfront costs that have to be smoothed and mitigated, but a long-term royalty regime is something that would be very important, because the wind, although it blows over our land, is still our resource. And we need to make sure that we are getting the best value of that resource, whether it's in the generation capacity or the export capacity with respect to hydrogen. We need to make sure that we are getting the best value for that while developing a brand new industry, as you say. So in developing a fiscal framework that companies can adhere to and government can put forward for them to subscribe to, we will have more certainty, but we also have to build in there the ability to renegotiate along the way so that we don't get stuck with the Churchill Falls, if you will, which, of course, the main issue with that deal was not just the length of the deal, but the fact that it was a fixed cost. And I think that's what everyone is very cognizant of when looking at a new industry here.
Well, Premier, you're going to have a lot on your plate this year. Thanks so much for coming in and sharing some of your thoughts.
Thanks so much, Peter.
Well, earlier in the show, you heard from the Community Food Sharing Association about the need in this province. Well, right across the country, food banks are bracing for a major surge in demand. A new report from the food rescue organization Second Harvest says food charities expect to see a 60% jump in demand this year. That's on top of the 134% increase they experienced in 2022.
A lot of people that are accessing food supports have jobs. These are families that just can't make it, and they could be two-parent families, and they have jobs. It's just minimum wage. Even when you're working two jobs, it's not enough to pay the rent.
The group says governments need to step in with more affordable housing and income supports, which would address the root problems that drive people to use food charities in the first place. The report is based on a cross-country survey of 1,300 food charities, including food banks, community groups, and schools. 70% of those organizations say they require more food donations and funding. Meanwhile, a community fridge in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia is making a big difference. And thanks to a recent social media post, people have been coming out in droves to help fill its empty shelves. The CBC's Colleen Jones has that story.
People kept coming, armed with bags and boxes of food, aiming to fill up the Dartmouth community fridge. Mike McIsaac saw the Facebook challenge.
I just said I know where that place is and I've got extra food, so I'll give it to people who need it.
It was this Facebook post by Brian Clark. He heard the shelves were empty here yesterday. He issued a Facebook challenge to people. Help out if you can. And people did just that.
Mine posted, and I thought, oh my gosh, I knew that was there. Why haven't I dropped by?
A lot of people were saying the same thing, and slowly the shelves started filling back up.
It was find out the need. Well, it's hard to think of people coming here needing something and the shelves being bare, you know, and we all have so much. If everyone just did a little bit like this, it would really go around and everybody would be fed.
With the philosophy of take what you need and leave something if you can, news of the challenge continues to spread.
It touched my heart. This is my third time here since yesterday.
Bringing food.
Yeah. I'm glad I seen it. It's an eye opener, right? Just makes you really think like there are people that really need help.
Picking up a few things, I find Corey McCallum.
But I mean, I'm living in like a rooming house, so it's hard to have like storage to stock up on groceries. So it's usually like eating day to day. So this is making it a little easier. I can come over here, grab a couple of things to eat for 2 days, and instead of hitting the food bank and stocking up for like a week or so.
Nice.
So
That's
this
nice.
helps out that way.
Yeah, times are hard with the price of groceries right now.
Oh, I'm telling you, everything. I used to buy my big, large family packets of oatmeal, and they started off before the pandemic. They were $3.99. Now they're $7.59.
With food prices and every other expense going through the roof, these are tough times. Christine Nodegar volunteers with the community fridge.
The cost of everything else, people have to make, choices about what they can buy. Food, medication, heating their homes.
Thank you, Colleen.
Everybody here.
Kathleen Flowerdew is dropping off fresh vegetables and fruit.
It's sad when you're behind somebody at the cash and they say, I've only got $40. What will I put back?
The fridge and cupboard's full again, but the need returns tomorrow and the day after that too. The man who started this challenge hopes people don't forget those who need help. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Dartmouth.
Well, some planes are back in the sky across the U.S. after being grounded for hours due to a computer system failure at the Federal Aviation Administration. More than 1,100 U.S. flights were canceled after that system went down. Flights are slowly resuming, but almost 8,000 have been delayed. The cause of the outage is being investigated, but the White House says there's no evidence of a cyber attack. Canadian travelers headed south of the border are being advised to check flight times in advance, but the overall impact on Canadian airports hasn't been as severe. Now, Canada's aviation system also suffered an outage this afternoon, though no disruptions were reported. Okay, so time for a look at the long-range forecast, and we were talking earlier that if you like snow, enjoy it while it lasts, in the east at least. So yeah, we have some weather on the way.
We do. A nice big system moving in for the weekend, which is going to bring some messy weather, really, let's just face it, across a good portion of the island. Environment Canada has some special weather statements issued. I've color-coded them for you to make it a little easier. There you go. So it looks like rain on the south coast at this point. About 100 millimeters is certainly possible. This will fall from Friday evening through to Sunday morning, so a whole weekend of weather. And then for pretty much Green Bay, White Bay through to the west coast, we're looking at a mess of weather. So this should start as snow. It could pick up about 10 to 15 centimeters Friday night. By Saturday, that will change over to rain. But it looks like it will change from rain to freezing rain and then potentially back to rain. So these are the amounts Saturday night. About 15 to 30 millimeters of freezing rain is possible. That's significant, so we'll have to keep an eye on that one. And then for the Northern Peninsula, this looks like a mainly snow event to start anyway, 20 to 30 centimeters of snow, and then that will change over to rain or freezing rain between 15 to 25 millimeters of rain. So let's just show you what's going to happen. Those are the amounts. They'll likely change, but those are the amounts at the moment. We'll see that snow move in Friday afternoon, and it will likely be heavy at times. And then as we head into the evening hours, that will change over to rain. This is just one model. There's a bit of disagreement, but at this point, this is what it's looking like. 4 degrees for Port aux Basques, so that's why we'll see that change over to rain, but the rest of the island will stay below zero. We'll likely see some flurries start in the evening hours for the Avalon. As far as Labrador is concerned, your temperatures will be in the minus teens for the most part, -8 in Cartwright and along the Strait as well. You're looking at those minus single-digit temperatures. Now, as we head into Friday evening and Saturday, as this area of low pressure moves in, Northern Peninsula at this point will stay as snow, but this is where we're going to see that change over to freezing rain and rain from Green Bay, White Bay through to the west coast. And then watch what happens. It sinks further south. So this is why it's going to be a little bit of a mess. It sticks around right through the weekend, but you will see that changeover from showers or freezing rain and then back to showers. So definitely, if you do have travel plans this weekend, you're going to want to pay attention to the forecast. Temperatures, look, 9 to 11 degrees, hence why everything is changing over to rain. A significant warm up. So whatever snow is on the Avalon at the moment, you can say goodbye to that. And then as far as the Big Land is concerned, pretty nice day. In fact, 23 degrees below zero for Lab City, but under the showers. Now, here's what I was talking about. There we go back to the rain, and then eventually that goes away. And then as we head into Monday, another round will move in. So it's going to be messy. Taking a look at the long range forecast, we've got those temperatures around 10 to 11 degrees for St. John's, but look at what happens as we head to the long range. Temperatures are going to stay above zero right into next week, it looks like. And then we've got those temperatures pretty much across the board going to be up above zero, dropping though as we get into next week. And then for Labrador, you're looking at sunshine Monday and Tuesday, and lots of it. Great shot here. Wanted to share this photo with you. A nice one, a mackerel sky on the west coast. Thank you so much for that. If you have any weather photos, send them to Facebook, Twitter, or email them to nophotos@cbc.ca.
Gorgeous. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Good night.